Hi there, Harry Linden here from Lakeview Business Solutions. TechSmith released its latest version, Snagit 2023, recently, and as a reseller of TechSmith's products in Melbourne, I always test the new features. So let's go and have a look at what the new features are. So the first thing you will notice is that the webcam now has various shape options. As you notice in my introduction, the webcam was circular as opposed to the rectangle shape you experienced in version 2022. There are a number of different shapes to choose from. Snagit 2023 now has an annotation tool or draw tool that allows you to draw arrows, boxes and steps whilst you are recording. It's a perfect tool for when you are presenting to an audience. You can now share your video directly to your screencast account. Collaborate with your team in Screencast. This allows your team to comment and annotate before you finish production of your video. If you use Slack, Snagit now has a direct integration into your Slack account. As you know, TechSmith products are all about communicating visually. So anyone who needs to produce training videos and documentation or illustrate complex concepts or present to an audience should seriously look at Snagit as a tool in their everyday work. It's more than an app for taking screenshots. You can annotate and create short videos as well. So let's now look at a real example. So to illustrate the new features of Snagit 2023, I'm going to use an accounting package with some test data. Now this is a package called MyOb, and it's a test company that I can just use to test not only the software but also for things like illustrating what I'm doing now, the Snagit features. Now one of the things that you'll notice on the toolbar is that the webcam icon now has a drop down arrow, which means that you can now select a series of different shapes. Now I quite like the circle because it's much smaller and out of the way. You don't want the video to be distracted by your own webcam, so what I also like to do is just make it a bit smaller so it doesn't detract from what you're speaking about. So that's the first difference. So you can have rectangle, rounded rectangle, square or rounded square. And as you know from the previous version, you can position your webcam in any of the four corners. So you can't move it in the middle, for example. It can go into any of the corners and so on. And also you can turn it off if you choose to. So if I click that, then it disappears. So I'll just turn that back on again. Apart from that, there's no real difference in the toolbar, so I'll move that out of the way for a moment. But the other thing that you now have, when you hit the record button, you've got a new tool. It's called a draw tool. So if I click on that, you'll notice there's a number of different things you can do. Now you can draw arrows, boxes, and you can use a stepping tool. The color is really dependent on what you've got set in the Snagit editor. So if you want to change themes, then do that before you make the recording. I've got mine set to blue, and in fact, if I move this down a bit, let me just move this down a bit so you can see it better. There we go. So if I click on here, you'll notice that I've got blue and grey. So I'm going to stick with blue, and I'm going to use the arrow as an example. So if you were presenting to an audience, you could simply draw an arrow to point to the area of focus, and you'll notice after 5 seconds the arrow disappears. But at least you've got the initial focus point so you can talk about that. The other way you could do it is by drawing a border around the area that you're speaking about. So if I wanted to talk about sales, for example, I could simply just neatly draw a box around like that, so you know that this is the focal area, and again it disappears. The other way is to use the stepping tool. So if you wanted to talk about 4 different things, you wanted to talk about sales, purchases, bank accounts, and the in tray, again they would disappear after 5 seconds. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the button below. Till next time.